Well, hello and welcome to episode number 350 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, BA bring back all the best bits to business and first-class passengers. Easyjet start a trolley service to your door, and Ryanair want us to jab and go. And in the military this week, the Belgian Air Force receives its first Airbus A400M. British Aerospace, or BAE, ends aircraft manufacturing in Borough, and after 104 years. And the first Russian Su-57 is delivered to an operational unit. So joining me in the PTUK studios this week, as always, it is the man who presses everything correctly and has the best cable management apart from Neville Bounds. It is Matt Smith.
Yeah, we're going to gloss over the cable management at the moment, to be fair, because if not, Nev saw this studio after the Christmas show. It hasn't been put right since then.
Ow.
Nev would have a nervous breakdown if he saw the studio at the moment, I have to be honest. So there we go. So yeah, please take back that statement.
Okay, but you do actually, Matt, you do have a nice picture on the green screen behind you this evening.
I do. Now, I don't know a lot about it. It's something that Jonathan Warner sent me. So bless Jonathan Warner for sending me a picture. He sent it to the WhatsApp number, +44 757 2249 166. It's one of those Antonov Russian things, isn't it?
Yeah, 124.
Oh, it is the 124. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I've actually heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to the one that we did the story a couple of weeks ago about it running off the runway.
Get me.
Big airplane.
Bit of airplane knowledge there. Now, I should just explain very briefly. Welcome, Armando. Hello, by the way. We should just explain that Armando's having to use an emergency backup system at the moment because the weather is challenging, I think, at best, where you are at the moment.
Yeah, like I was saying, our friend Dan Hawley, weatherman extraordinaire, one of his colleagues here in North Carolina, decided to put a snowflake on the weather forecast, so the entire state is shut down. They
Including the internet.
Including the internet, so I'm on my phone, not even a hotspot, and if I look outside, it is actually clear and warm enough to go walk the dogs. So, gotta love those weathermen.
Right. Okay. I mean, does that mean you're leaving us to go and walk the dogs? Is that your way of telling us that you're not available this week? No?
Just to throw some spice into your world, Matt. Yes, I'm going to leave right now. Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, crikey.
So joining us this week also in his glorious, very nice suite, as always, wearing a shirt and overdressing for the occasion. He always looks smart. It is Neville Bounds.
Well, I thought we need to bring in the standards up a little bit. But yes, hello everybody and welcome to the first live show of 2021. And hopefully, we hope it's going to be a nice start to the show, but the year. But it's been a bit difficult, all this lockdown business, isn't it? So we're going to be stuck with it for some time, I'm afraid. But we are here to entertain you, so hopefully you'll enjoy what we've got to show you tonight.
Yes, and thanks for joining us as always, Nev. Everything all right with the banana?
Yes, well, it's not been out much, obviously. Went to Sainsbury's the other day. That's a 2.5 mile round trip. That was it. So, not much going on there. So I'll probably have to charge the battery or put it on the trickle charger. It's just not being used at all. So, yeah.
Did it use 25 litres of fuel on that round trip, Nev?
That's right, yes. I would, yes. First gear all the way. Yeah.
It's very economical, that banana, I tell you.
Yeah, it is.
So that was the voice we'll introduce next, I think. And joining us from the A320 podcast, it is, of course, the first, or we'll say the first host, but one of the first hosts of the show. And it is, of course, he joined us for the Christmas show. It's Andrew Wilson.
Hello. I even sound like the podcast hello then, didn't I?
He did, actually, yeah.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Hope everybody's well, and Happy New Year.
And how are things here, Andy? All good?
Good. And my prediction as well at the end of your Christmas show, your show is better than this year already.
I like that. I'll take that.
So, really good.
Is that, I don't know. I'm not, I feel like I should be offended. Yeah. It's backhanded compliment. Anyone?
No, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to the show tonight.
Good. It's good to have you on. Good to have you on. And also joining us is the other part of the duo from the A320 podcast. He was also on the Christmas show, and it's good to welcome back as well, Matt. Good to have you on, Matt. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for inviting us both on. And, looking forward to the show as always. Still recovering from the Christmas one.
So am I. New Year wasn't long enough.
No, Armando, I was going to say, Armando, we did hear from. He's busy doing something in his studio at the moment. Isn't he?
Oh, crikey.
Yeah,
Nerve-wracking.
it's all very technical.
Indeed.
But actually,
Yes.
Matt, before we move on, Matt, I'm going to ask you a question because it was a question that was posted on the social medias, and it's also been asked by a few listeners. And it was that question: how long did it take you guys to edit and get the Christmas show to the high level of quality it was?
I think the phrase "unexpected high levels" I think is the best way to describe it. Yes, we were pleasantly surprised at how it turned out. There was a recording session here in the studio where I had to basically match the hair, shave the beard off again, like continuity, throw on the jumper and all that kind of thing. I think John sat down and worked out that if you included the pre-production, the actual recording, and the hours spent if one person was doing all the editing, because both myself and John had to do all the editing on that particular potential car crash, and I think John, correct me in my ear if I'm wrong, I think it was something in the region of nearly 92 hours, I'm being told in my ear is how long it took to do it. But hello.
92 hours.
You're right there, Carlos.
So I'm just waving at Armando's way.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Maddie was just saying hello. So
I see.
hello.
Aww.
Yeah.
Yes.
92 hours.
Yeah.
That is just, crazy.
Yes. Yeah. We had a lot of fun, though, it has to be said. It generated an unexpected amount of work purely and simply because we had so much fun. That's the long and the short of it.
And if you haven't already seen the Christmas show, and you're listening to the show as an audio show or a video or the visual show, do take yourselves over to our YouTube page because the Christmas show is on there and it is well worth a watch.
Yeah, it was good fun, and and the New Year show actually, it was quite nice to relive some of the highlights, if you like, of the because 2020 wasn't great. I'll be honest, but I was delighted that actually we achieved an alarming amount, shall we say, despite lockdowns left, right, and centre. And New Year seems to have started the same way. I have to be honest, but.
So moving on to our weekly roundup, Nev, you've got something for us, haven't you?
Oh yes, well you know what I'm like. I get myself in a tizzy when I see media fails, and we haven't got to look very far. Andy Monks on Twitter very kindly posted this on his Twitter feed. A nice mug of a Boeing 747-400, 1989 to 2020. That's fantastic. And they've put a picture of a Dreamliner -9 on it by the looks of it. So
wow,
not a 747 at all. But there you go. But as Andy says, look at this exceptionally accurate cup for sale on Facebook. Oops.
Now, I mean, I'm the first to admit I don't know a great deal about aviation, but even I was able to successfully identify, because it hasn't got that little hump at the front with the upstairs, and that's the only reason I was able to successfully identify that is an incorrect image. I mean, everybody's slightly proud of me.
Let's not forget, that might be worth some money in a few years' time. You never know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that's putting a Christmas card together to your new wife with a picture of your ex-wife or something like that.
Yes, what he said.
This is an aviation podcast. How many captains do we have on this show right now, right? It's just a matter of life in aviation. You're going to have a couple wives.
Wow.
Anyway,
okay, and on
before
that
the wives do watch any
Surprisingly, neither of us are divorced either.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, there's plenty of time for that.
Nev.
Yeah, it's a burgeoning career.
I see what you did there.
Oh, blimey. Let's hope they don't watch.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the next part of the show then. Nev, it is the beginning of the month, and obviously we have some very special thanks to say to some awesome people.
We do, and as always, as I mention every month, we could not do this podcast without your assistance. So thank you very much to the Patreon donators this month, which are Nick Codling, Warren Dixon, Louis Chares, Alan Loveday, Andrew van der Sarg, Alan White, Stephen Howland, Tanya Wyman, Megan Carrion, Jacob Darlington Brown, Nicholas Hewitt, Masha, Owen, Ruben Wells, Graham Haley, Jonathan Warner, Eric Graves, Matt Caton, Jordan Rose, Andrew Wilson, Captain Jeff, Adam Spink, Liz Piper, Jeff Ward, Myler, Evan Shue, Philip Labe, Stuart Backer, Ray Williams and Stephanie Palama. And those who have donated by the regular PayPal method are Tony S, Anthony Smithson, Jennifer Jenny Parkinson, Mazuz Kareem and Richard Adams. Thank you very much to one and all. We really appreciate your contributions.
Yes, very much indeed, because this month we have invested in a new piece of kit for John, who produces the show for us. So John is using a nice new headset now, and I must say, John, your audio is so much better.
Yes, we've got no excuse now. We will hear him now, sadly. Oh yes, actually, I will just mention for those who are Patreon and PayPal donators, we actually released exclusively to those wonderful people a special bloopers reel that we put together that's mainly around the fun and games we had with the Christmas show that we mentioned earlier. You'll see why there was so much editing when you watch that, and also with a few blooper highlights from within the year as well. It will be available to everyone else very soon, but if you are a Patreon or PayPal donator, it is available in your inboxes already to give it a bit of a watch.
So big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live chat room this evening, and we're just going to quickly read out the names in there. Graham Haley, hello to you, Graham. Richard Adams, Lane Street, Captain Al, always good to have Captain Al in. Lee Davis, Captain Cruz, Graham Haley, Stephen H, Jenny in Rome. Hope things are good in Rome, Jenny. Hope you're safe. We've got Brandon Planespotter 23. Hello to you, Charles Einarson. Nice to see you in there, Charles. Just scrolling up. Mark Priestley, hello to you, Mark. Neville Barnes is in there as well, keeping an eye on
Never heard of him.
With the blue spanner of death. And Richard Adams is still in there. We're glad to see Richard Adams still in there. Our main man, Micah, as well, is also in there. Sturman, hello to you, Sturman. Good to see you in there. And just going to make sure I don't forget anyone. Stephen H, and hopefully I haven't missed one. And Auntie Liz as well is
hi,
also
Auntie Liz.
on proceedings.
I wonder how Poppy is. Not your Poppy, obviously.
She's asleep, I expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't forget as well, if you do watch the show or listen to the show, and maybe you listen to it as an audio podcast, don't forget as well, if you want to join us on YouTube, check us out on youtube.com/Plain Talking UK. If you go on there, you'll see the subscribe button. You can click on that, and if you click on the bell icon, which is right next door, you'll be notified when we're live and recording new episodes, because we'd love to have you in the chat room. So we've got another little special bit to play out next, haven't we, guys?
Yes, we have. And as the episode is 350, what's better to show some A350 stuff? I've been looking through some bits and pieces on YouTube recently, and I've been really impressed with some of the content that a chap called Bjorn Pilot has been putting out there. Now, Bjorn's a skipper for a major Scandinavian airline, flying the A330 and A340. And you might have hear people from time to time talk about the avionics bay in aircraft. And of course, the bits you see on the flight deck are just the control panels, effectively, and the knobs and buttons. But the clever bit is very much in the avionics bay. Now, I just assumed that the avionics bay on the A350 wasn't that big, and they'd crammed it all into a small space, and you could get access to it from somewhere. Just take a look at this video and the way Bjorn takes us down from the flight deck into the avionics bay. It is absolutely astounding.
I will check out the avionics compartment where all the computers are placed. The light and opening. First time I'm down here. All the computers and lots of stuff. Everything clean and new. The nose gear is below this one. Should be a hatch somewhere, so you can go down with a ladder. think it's off here. Wow. Should be here. Let's take a look into the cargo area. This is the cargo area. Wow. Okay, let's go back and close the door. Interesting. And here's the ladder to the cockpit. Wow. Closing.
That's absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen so much tech in my entire life.
I know, it was brilliant, wasn't it? And the amount of space that the avionics bay occupies in the 350 is phenomenal. But of course, we're going to give them a very bold 9.5 out of 10 for cable management.
Oh, right. Oh, blimey, that is praise indeed.
So, yeah,
My
and
goodness.
absolutely unbelievable. So, but yeah, have a look at Bjorn's channel on YouTube. On Twitter, he's at Bjorn Pilot, and you can just look him up on YouTube as well. He's got some fantastic
We'll make sure
stuff.
it's in the show notes for anybody
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that A320, guys?
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? You know, on the 320, you have to go out externally, climb up a ladder through the underneath. That is just incredible. It reminded me actually of years ago when I watched the film of Flight Plan with Jodie Foster, and they went down into sort of a computer room, and you thought that is the most unrealistic thing I've ever seen in my life. And here we are. They finally caught up with Hollywood, and they built a room underneath the aeroplane for all the computers.
I mean, in some respects, it makes sense, doesn't it? But
Yeah, we forget how much room is down there as well, really, because with the floor, of course, you've got all the height above. You've got just about the same below, and you can fit a lot of stuff down there, especially on the electric jets that Airbus produce. There's a lot of black boxes. It looks a lot like a server room, really, down there.
Yeah, it does actually. That is a good comparison, actually. As Nev quite rightly pointed out, a solid 9.5 out of 10 for its cable management.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you imagine how many cable ties are down there.
Oh my goodness!
And the other thing is, you must imagine the cooling. You know, a server room takes a huge amount of cooling, and you would imagine there's a similar system down there.
I mean, realistically, how much of that stuff could be operated by battery, for example? Because presumably you don't have the engines running when you're tapping all that stuff in, like flight plans and stuff like that.
No, but that's all on the ground power. So it's using all the same
Right.
bars. So it's the full electrical system. It's just instead of the engine generators giving the power, it's either the APU generator at the back or just a direct ground feed of the required voltage.
Straight in, yeah. Okay, that kind of makes sense, yeah.
For example, I mean, some of the loads on these aircraft, like the A380, has 2 generators on the APU, and when they plug into ground power, they have to have 2 ground powers plugged in to run all the electric.
Really?
I don't know what it's like on the 350, but looking at that room, I wouldn't be surprised if it was similar.
Similar, yeah, sort of just because of the sheer current, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Gosh. Well, thank you for finding that, Nev. That was fascinating.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that was absolutely fanning.
Yeah, Dan Brennan in the chat room says the A330 bay is equally as spacious. The A320 is horrible. If you're over a size 28 waist, you're struggling.
Oh, dear, that's me out then. Lovely.
I can get in. I'm oversized 28 inch.
Oh, dear. What's Armando said in the chat room? No,
Oh.
deathly silence. Good.
You know, one of my favorite things to do when I worked on different airplanes and I was flying a bunch of different platforms was the labels that they put on everything. And I remember that in the C-130 avionics bay, which wasn't as big as that, there was one box in there and it just said handle like eggs. Gotta make it simple for the mechanics.
Wow. Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Oh, sorry. I'm having some technical issues in the studio here, guys. I can't get the chat room to work for some reason. So you'll just have to keep reading them out for me.
We'll keep an eye.
Yep.
So, I suppose we better move on, I suppose.
Indeed.
Next part of the show. So we're going to move on with our roundup of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if everyone is ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Well, as we've been away for a couple of weeks, we thought we'd give you a bit of a roundup of some of the headlines since we've been away. Well, Alaska Airlines accelerates Airbus retirements and places new order for 23 new 737-9 MAX aircraft. This brings to 68 and 52 options the number of MAX aircraft that Alaska have on order. A German Diamond DA-28 Katana pilot draws a vaccine in the skies. BA A320 Neo diverts after first officer becomes unconscious. The BA flight bound for Athens turned round over Croatia, intending to return to London. However, it eventually diverted to Zurich. The first officer is now feeling well and was positioned back to London. Pokemon planes brought back by Japan's Solar Seed Air. Pokemon liveries haven't been seen since 2016, but the new livery on the Solar Seed Boeing 737 features Pokemon character Executor. Turkish Airlines is now flying to over 200 destinations. Since returning to its operations in June, Turkish Airlines has been working to rebuild its status as it's serving most destinations of any airline globally. Through the 31st of January, Turkish will be flying to 208 destinations. And a new suspect in the Lockerbie disaster has been charged in a US court. This represents the third person to be charged or prosecuted in the last 30 years. And finally, food and drink has been banned from domestic flights in Thailand. The Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand has banned food and drink on all domestic flights and routes in Thailand. The move comes after the authorities tried to restrict the amount of the spread of the coronavirus. All flights that don't exceed 2 hours duration come under the ban. So, that's a summary of what's been happening since we were last doing a live show.
There you go. There's been a lot happening since we've been off air, blimey.
I know.
Especially some of those stories. And it's nice to see Turkish now with 200 destinations, which is all good for, especially when we get to the other end of this this pandemic anyway. 208 destinations, yeah. Very good.
Very good.
So, first news story then. And looking forward to this one because I am really eager to see what this is like when we do eventually get to go back to Dubai. So this one comes to us from Emirates.com and Sam Chewy.com and the executivetraveller.com. And Emirates takes its newest A380 with premium economy to London. Emirates has announced that it will deploy its latest flagship A380 aircraft featuring the new premium economy seats and luxurious enhancements across all cabins to London Heathrow. Starting from the 4th of January, passengers flying between Dubai and London Heathrow on EK003 and 004 can experience Emirates' latest A380. Emirates last week unveiled its latest A380 with brand new premium economy seats that offer a generous seat pitch of up to 40 inches. Yes, you heard me right, 40 inches. In addition to a new economy class seats, enhancements to its popular A380 first class and business class, including its signature shower spa and onboard lounge, and refreshed colours and fittings across all cabins. Until more premium economy seats enter its inventory, the the airline intends to offer these as spot upgrades for its valued customers on discretionary basis. So if you're one of those lucky customers, what should you expect? Well, the premium economy class is located at the very front of the main deck of Alpha 6 Echo Victor November. It has 56 seats in a 242 layout with a pitch of up to 40 inches and a width of 19.5 inches. The seat itself is a highly customized version of the PL3530 seat from Recaro. It has an 8-inch recline, 13.3-inch screens, adjustable head, leg and footrests, an in-arm dining table and cocktail side table. Wow, nice. Each seat is finished with cream-coloured, anti-stain, very important, leather, with bronze and wood panel trim. This A380 also has refreshed cabin interiors in all cabins, including updates to business class with an executive jets-inspired finish, new wider and taller doors in its first-class private suites, and the latest seats with their award-winning ICE IFE in economy as well. Now, I must say I'm looking forward very much to this because having flown Emirates a number of times, economy was good with Emirates, to be fair, as is business class. But seeing these seats, these premium economy seats on the press release they made on YouTube with the video, they do look really nice, I have to say.
I think this is an extremely shrewd move by Emirates. The premium economy market is massive, and not everybody wants to pay the price of their business class, which is brilliant. I mean, I'd love to try their first as well, but that's well out of my price range.
I think
but
it's
I definitely
think price range.
as a fan of trips overseas to watch cricket, I know some people will think that's very boring. I do like to travel in comfort, and I definitely go for this premium economy offering.
Indeed. I'm just playing the video actually, so if people. I mean, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? I mean, I quite like.
It does look nice.
I mean, if I was to be super critical, it look. I mean, I think it looks really stylish, but it's got a real old school feel about it. Do you know what I mean? It reminds me of the Rovers. Do you know what I mean? Is that?
I love it.
Actually,
I will say over the holidays, I got rid of my Jeep and bought a new Volkswagen that's got the same color interior. And I bought a 7-year warranty because I have kids for that same color light. So good luck to Emirates.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do we? What does everybody else? Is it just me that thinks it looks a little dated, perhaps?
No, I like it. I think it looks smarter.
Yeah.
It's very Emirates.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It is
Emirates.
very Emirates. It's that plush. It's all right, slightly dated, but they're going for the sort of 70s proper luxury look, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. If you sort of said, "Would you like to come and sit in this seat?" It would be definitely like, yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, but it's,
actually, I think we have to ask
probably...
Nev, don't we? We have to ask Nev, being the connoisseur of all things
True.
business class. What do you think, Nev?
Oh, well, I totally agree with Andy. I mean, the whole problem that the airlines have had is this massive disparity between the price of an economy seat and a business class seat. The premium economy that they look as though they're offering here looks absolutely superb, and I think that they're going to do really well with it. So, yeah, I agree with Andy. Very shrewd move, and a very good time to do this as well, because let's face it, people are seriously fed up and they'll want to fly somewhere. And they will probably pay a bit of a premium to do that as well, because they've been not able to travel. So, yeah, I think they've done a nice job here.
So, Matt C., what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it looks great. And actually, I think it could work the other way as well, where if people are trying to cut costs, it's not such a downgrade for them if they used to travel in business and now they can travel in premium. It's not such a big jump down. I reckon Emirates would probably prefer the phrase classic to dated.
Yes. So that's good. But then that's a very sensible PR answer as opposed to the stuff that usually falls out of my mouth. Let's be honest. But
I think Armando is right. I think they've gone for the corporate jet look. It does look very much like the corporate jet images you see put out, doesn't it?
Actually, yeah, that's a good comparison. That it is, it wouldn't look out of place with people like NetJets and things like that. It's that same sort of plush luxury, isn't it?
I look forward to seeing how much of a difference there is between the price of economy and and this premium. It'd be interesting to see.
Have they released any
To
prices
seeing the
yet?
state of the seats after 4 years.
Yeah, apparently there's no tickets being sold at the moment, so I guess it's. I was going to make Carlos look it up, but producer John is saying that
I actually did look early this week, Matt, and I couldn't. I think John just said I couldn't find any on.
No, okay.
Bit of information from Captain Al in the chat room rather helpfully. He says that the Emirates premium economy will keep the cricket riffraff out of business class.
Oh, how rude.
Harsh.
Harsh, but I don't know. Any comment to that, Andy? Actually, no. Too risky. No. Moving on.
Matt.
I thought we were friends, Al. I thought we were friends.
So, Mr. Smith, you have got a nice and sharp story to go on with.
Well, yes, literally, in some respects. So this is story number 2, as it always has to be, is, of course, a Ryanair story. And the headline is Ryanair in hot water with 2 UK authorities. In brackets, are we surprised? No is the short answer. Ryanair's new Jab and Go advert is being investigated by the Advertising and Standards Authority, the ASA, after the watchdog received over 1,000 complaints. The advert, which features a small bottle labelled vaccine and a syringe, tells the public COVID vaccines are coming, so book your Easter and summer holidays today with Ryanair. 1 million seats on sale from £19.99 to sunshine destinations in Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece and many more, so you could jab and go. The ASA said that it received 1,600 complaints about the advert, including that it was misleading to suggest the vaccine would be rolled out by the spring and that travel restrictions would be over. Consumers also complained that the advert trivialised the pandemic's impact on society. Elsewhere, however, Ryanair and the UK Civil Aviation Authority are having a bit of a spat. The airline has cancelled a dozen domestic routes in the UK, blaming the CAA's wet lease policies. The issue stems from using wet lease foreign aircraft for flights from the UK. So wet lease is where one aircraft provides another a complete aircraft package, including crew, maintenance, insurance, fuel, and often soft products. The CAA told the Flight Global that a airline with the type of presence Ryanair UK has shouldn't rely on foreign registered aircraft for their operations. Ryanair UK currently have only one single aircraft out of the group's over 460 aircraft registered in the UK, and so are using Irish wet leased aircraft on UK routes. The aircraft was registered in 2019, although has only operated twice under its RK code. Both occasions to countries outside the EU, Montenegro and Norway, and both trips since January 2021. On the 21st of December, the airline Ryanair UK was made aware by the CAA that it would be in breach of regulations once the UK left the EU, commonly referred to as Brexit. Everyone quickly grab a drink. Ryanair said that it had agreed to contingency arrangements with the CAA 2 years ago, and that it was impractical to comply with the new requirements with 10 days notice. The CAA responded that it did not change its policy but rather upheld a long-standing principle. CAA Director Paul Smith said, "It's been our long-standing position that a UK airline with a significant presence in the UK, such as Ryanair UK does, should not rely heavily on wet leased foreign registered aircraft. Doing so undermines the competitiveness of the UK aviation industry." Now, I have lots of personal feelings about this, and Nev, any thoughts before I come to before I sort of voice mine?
Oh, I'm too shy. I must let you go first, Matt, please.
Since when have you... Right, okay, all right. Well, see, we had a production meeting last night. I know that's a shock that we had a production meeting, but I mean, I kind of agree with him. I kind of agree with O'Leary on this. I mean, it's like, if it's okay for one... I get the whole competitions thing. I get that to a degree. But if... I don't know. Yeah, somebody bail me out of this hole, because I'm worried I'm going to say something that I shouldn't. Good, lovely.
Deadly silence. I love it.
I think the issue here is not necessarily anything to do with Brexit. I think this is an issue that's been going on for a while, and the CAA don't really like it that Ryanair, the majority of their aircraft are based outside of Ireland, yet they're registered there, and the Irish version of the CAA, the IAA, have very different rules on certain things, and Ryanair take advantage of that by effectively being headquartered there. So it's always been an issue that they can undermine the competitiveness of other airlines by doing that. And, you know, most of certainly there's a lot more of their aircraft in Stansted than there are in Dublin. So I think that's where the issue comes from.
And if you
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, if you take other big low-cost carriers as well, Wizz Air have quite a few aircraft on their UK register, as well as obviously Easyjet.
Right. Okay.
Most of their aircraft on the UK register, but the other big low-cost airlines have actually made an effort with the UK arm to register more aircraft than just one.
One, right? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
yeah,
Matt.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah, and with the jab and go, I was going to say, I mean, I'm not really that bothered about it. It's just a joke, isn't it? I don't think, you know, I mean, it's worked, hasn't it? It's all over the page. People are talking about it. Yeah. So, you know.
What's it they say? It's like, yeah, no, and there's no such thing as bad PR. I mean, it's like
they say, yeah.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
No one actually really surely believes that, if we get a jab, we can then go and book a flight with Ryanair. It's just, I guess it's just talking about the situation in general.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to something a bit more first class, shall we, Nev?
Oh,
yes, absolutely.
See what you did there.
This is on the pointsguy.co.uk, and it says that British Airways is set to restore most of its business and first class service for flights starting on the 20th of January this year, so just a couple of weeks away, less than that now. To limit the spread of COVID-19 on board, many airlines reduced in-flight services, replacing hot meals with pre-packaged snack boxes, no longer distributing blankets and pillows, no open pour drinks in the main cabin. But with a vaccine already in the early stages of distribution, the industry is starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel and is making plans for 2021. As part of this article, it shows you a picture of a British Airways aircraft, which is absolutely brilliant. Why they've shown a 747-400, which has been taken out of service, I have no idea.
It should be on the mug.
Well, quite. Why not put an A350 or a Dreamliner up there? Anyway, Turning Left for Less website reports that British Airways will be bringing back the following in-flight services for business and first class. So standard business and first class china, cutlery and glasses, dine on demand and an a la carte dining in first class, hot meal service in regional business class, signature afternoon tea service and special meals, normal first and club bar service with premium drinks, full tray service for the main meal in long-haul premium economy, World Traveller Plus, and in economy, which is what they call World Traveller. Though note that the dine-on-demand meals will be served on a single tray. Massive issue there, I'm sure. There are a few things which are not returning. No mattress toppers or blankets for Club World. Bit of a shame that, because I quite like it. It's very snuggly. No pre-departure drinks and no warm towel services. The bottom line is currently all meals are served in snack boxes, and there is no hot meal service at all, with the exception of international first class cabins. But it is nice to see BA, which is one of the airlines to most drastically reduced in-flight services, start reintegrating a more full service flight experience for business and first class passengers. So let's see how they get on, because I have to say the snack box that they did, and I had a couple of experiences of this on the Gibraltar flight and a couple I did to Edinburgh, they were not bad at all, I've got to say. So they did a nice job with that, but this is going to be returning to a full hot meal and drinks trolley service.
I do have a solution for the no pre-departure drinks. Either offer them to be ordered beforehand so they're ready at your seat, or just leave you a tray of everything. Wine, beer, champagne, gins, wine, everything.
I mean, the second idea is a great idea, but it's very much at risk of being abused, shall we say.
Not by the business and first class traveller.
My apologies. Sorry. Where are my manners?
I expect you're upset about the hot towel thing, Nev.
Well, actually, I'm not, because the temperature that these things come out of the microwave seems to be about 200 degrees centigrade. So you end up with blisters on your hands and face at the
makeup everywhere.
Yeah. So, but no, it's all right. It's well, let's see how we get on. But I don't think I'm going to be going back on any of these probably till March or April at the very earliest. I would say. So we'll have to see.
So Armando, you've got the next story, which is going to cost Boeing a couple of quid.
Yeah, I think most of us saw this coming, and this has been widely reported in the news, but Boeing has agreed to settle a criminal charge that it conspired to commit fraud by deceiving federal aviation officials by withholding safety information in its 737 MAX control systems. So the U.S. Justice Department on Thursday announced that they deferred the prosecution deal. Under the terms of this agreement, Boeing was charged with one count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. That will be dismissed after 3 years if Boeing continues to comply with the deal. So it calls for Boeing to pay over $2.5 billion in penalties and compensation payments to the companies that bought the planes and to the heirs, relatives, beneficiaries of the 346 passengers in those two crashes. Of that $2.5 billion, $1.77 billion has been set aside for Boeing, the 737 MAX customers. The company said that it already accounted for a bulk of these costs in prior quarters and expects to take a $743 million charge in its 2020 fourth quarter earnings to cover the rest. $500 million will go to the crash victim beneficiary fund, and $243 million and change will go to the government to settle their criminal penalty. So unlike many corporate settlement agreements where the defendant admits no wrongdoing, Boeing must acknowledge and accept the government's criminal fraud charge. In court documents, Boeing admitted that two of its 737 MAX flight technical pilots withheld information about the MCAS from the aviation watchdog's Aircraft Evaluation Group, or the AEG for the FAA. That omission meant subsequent technical material published by the FAA lacked the important details about the MCAS, and it deprived pilots of adequate training to deal with that system. So the president, CEO Dave Calhoun, said that he firmly believes that entering into this resolution is the right thing to do for the company, a step that appropriately acknowledges how they fell short of their values and expectations. He also added that this resolution is a serious reminder to all of us how critical our obligation of transparency is to the regulators and the consequences that our company can face if any one of us falls short of those expectations. So like I said, I think most of us saw this coming. This was in the works for a long time, and we knew that fairly quick after the accidents, the victims' families established that beneficiary fund, and we're going to challenge Boeing's, technical documentation and processes.
Wow. I mean, there's so many questions I've got about this. I won't go on too much. I know because we're overrunning a bit, but it's just, is there really a bottomless pit? Because this is going to cost it's already cost a frightening amount of money, and are we at risk of something like this bringing Boeing to an end?
No, I don't think so. I think this is something that they probably planned for fairly quick after the aircraft was grounded, how they were going to get it back in the air. Also, I'm glad to see that at least this CEO is adhering to the corporate responsibility and sort of taking acknowledging that the company did end up in this situation because of some of their shortcomings. But at the same time, the aircraft is back in the air. It's flying. There's orders coming in. I'm sure they're at wholesale prices, but I don't think this will take Boeing down. I think it's just going to steer the company in a different direction, and most likely a positive direction. That's my opinion.
Okay. I think sadly in this day and age, you have to kick a company in the teeth, monetary-wise, for them to make corporate change within a company. That's the only way you can make it happen. And sadly, a lot of people lost their lives over this. And I don't think Boeing will ever let it happen again.
I mean, there's this, I don't know. I guess the alarm bell ringing in my head is the fact that like it shouldn't have taken something like this. I mean, they should have seen the seriousness of the situation here, but I mean, we've gone over this again and again, haven't we? At the end of the day, so this is not new territory. But actually, Armando, before we'll sort of move on in a moment, but Armando, I need to bring something up with you, if I may.
What's that?
Okay, so it's now switched to you. Now, we don't normally get this angle, but just over your shoulder there is probably one of the... I'm going to zoom in so that everybody can see in the audience. One of the coolest things I think I've ever seen in my life just behind you. I absolutely... What is this? You need to explain to me what that is. It looks like something like from I don't know.
Oh, yeah. No, that's when I was an extra in the Star Wars movies. I was a stormthrough.
Right.
And this
okay.
this is my other stormtrooper helmet.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
These are standard aircrew helmets. I was fortunate enough to receive these when I retired out of the Air Force. But this is an HGU 55P fixed wing helmet, and that this one here, which makes you look like a stormtrooper, is my HGU 56P rotary wing helmet. So this is what we wore on the Osprey, which is it's not light by any means. It's probably 8 pounds or so, and then there's a battery pack on the back for 2 9-volt batteries, and then right here is where your night vision goggles mount. So there is also, in addition to the oxygen mask, if you're wearing that, if you're not wearing that, there's a face shield that comes up here. It's called a maxillofacial something protector shield. And with that, you really do look like a stormtrooper, and it's always fun to land in a foreign country, and there's no skin exposed, and you're explaining to them that the whirlybird that just fell from the sky and landed in their field, that we're with the government and we're here to help.
Right.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I knew that was a 56p. I'm surprised.
We took our cues from that documentary Avatar. Do you remember when?
Right. Yes.
come out
Yeah.
of
Very
the
much
sky?
so. Anyway, sorry, it was the geek in me just couldn't let it go. I'm afraid I needed clarity.
Richard Adams in the chat room says overkill for dropping jumpers from a Cessna 182.
Possibly, yes. Probably a little too much, really. Yeah.
Now, I will say I have a third one of these that I converted over for aerobatics. So when I was flying the extra over there in the UK, without the oxygen mask, this was a great helmet for flying aerobatic maneuvers in that airplane.
Do you know, it's the most frustrating thing is he doesn't even have to try. He's just cool, isn't he? It's just it really. Anyway,
man,
John's going to start screaming in my ear at the moment.
I will say, speaking of aerobatics, big shout out. I'm wearing my brand new Jody Ruger Air Shows t-shirt or polo shirt. And then we've got a couple extra hats, and I think I was talking to John that we may send one of those. We'll come up with some kind of good prize or something to get yourself a nice little Jody Ruger Air Show, nice embroidered hat. So,
look at you with
obviously
all the freebies, honestly.
Yeah,
look at that.
Well, it'll go to one of our fans. So
we have fans now.
Yeah. The chat room are going to be watching every show now.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Second of every show to get the hands
Anyway,
on.
before I go deaf in my left ear.
Yes, Matt, our guest Matt, you've got a next story which is all about cooking birds.
Oh.
It is, yeah. So we've got EAT Leipzig A306 at Amsterdam on the 3rd of January has a bird strike. So, as I say, on the 3rd of January, the A300, flying on behalf of DHL, registration Delta Alpha Echo Alpha Charlie, was performing a flight from Amsterdam to Leipzig in Germany and was rotating for takeoff from Amsterdam's runway 36 left when the left engine emitted a bang and a stream of flames. There's photographs and footage of this. The crew continued the takeoff. During the little climb, reported that they'd had a bird strike, likely into the landing gear, but they were okay now. The aircraft continued to Leipzig for a safe landing about 50 minutes later. The aircraft remained on the ground in Leipzig for about 13 and a half hours before returning to service. So all those people that are fearful of flying. This aircraft you're about to see on the video was quite spectacular and continued to its destination and flew again afterwards.
Now, would you have continued to its destination? I know it wasn't that far away, but I would just thought they might have wanted to just do a circuit and then come back to land. But
well, it would depend on what the indications were in the flight deck. I mean, that was obviously looks like an aircraft. The engine has stalled or had a just a bit of a surge. But if after that it was running normally, I say you'd have to see what the situation was on the flight deck.
Yeah, we can't see on the flight deck if something's gone through the core or around the outside.
So what were the chances of them actually knowing that that's what had happened? I mean, would they even known anything had happened?
They'd probably heard the bang. Sorry,
yeah, they'd have probably, I was going to say, they probably heard the bang, and if there was a momentary loss of power or a surge, they might have felt it yaw for a second. And I would imagine there was probably a blip in one or more of the indications for the engine, I would guess. But yeah, they probably know, but then you'd monitor the parameters and see if it's running normally. Yeah, sorry, Andy, continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because it's on the 300, the A300, it's old-fashioned dials. It's not CRTs. That's even old-fashioned as well. It's not the LCD displays for the engines in one of those. And it's got a very rudimentary ECAM system, which was sort of the birth of what we have in the 320. So they probably wouldn't have seen that much on it. One of the needles may have dipped ever so slightly. I mean, that video that you've shown there is very slowed down. That streak of flame is like a click of your fingers. It's not very long. So yeah, if everything looked fine, I'd have carried on as well.
Or they're listening to the show and they just found out right now.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
what happened?
Yeah, what was that? Yeah, I mean, again, so this is actually in real time, so this hasn't been slowed down, the video that I'm showing now. And as I say, it's literally the quickest little flash. You just think, oh, what was that? You know, woof, yeah.
Just heavily fried bird.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely, yeah. Yes, they're heavily fried.
Yeah.
Stephen H. in the chat room says, and the bird was on the menu in the airport restaurant 15 minutes
later. As it was already cooked, isn't it? I mean, it's just, scrape it up off the tarmac, away we go.
It might have also got that sort of fishy smell that you get as well when you take a bird down the core.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially birds like that, because Amsterdam's close to the sea as well, so it comes off a bit of a fishy... No, it does. When a bird goes down the core of an engine, it sort of gives a bit of a meaty, fishy smell.
Okay. See, I guess the naivety from my point of view is just like you think sort of, I mean, not, you drive your car and occasionally it just goes, it like coughs and you think, oh, well, what's that? And then you're sort of but you sort of dismiss it within a few moments, if you like. It's, I guess it could potentially be the same as far as the aircraft is concerned as well. But, yeah.
But Matt, I think you'd be surprised how many bird strikes actually happen. I think Matt and Andy probably taken quite a few. I know I've taken at least a dozen in 20 years of flying in different airplanes.
Yeah, taken quite a few, yeah. Some of them hit the windshield, some of them hit the landing gear, some go through. You have to be quite unlucky for it to go through the core. If you think how much aeroplane there is hitting the air, the chance of it going down the core is quite slim.
Quite slim, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So next story, or the last one, I should say, over to you, Andy, for this one, and a very special service being offered by one certain carrier.
Yes, well, with flights still disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and air travel making a very slow recovery, Easyjet brought festive cheer landside with a unique charity initiative. The low-cost carrier has partnered with Deliveroo to trial an at-home trolley service in London, serving complimentary drinks and snacks to residents in return for a voluntary donation to the charity Age UK. Uniformed cabin crew delivered the in-flight trolley service direct to homes in London, with treats including gin and tonics, glasses of Prosecco, and Bloody Marys alongside snacks such as olives and crisps. The crew even performed the safety instruction demonstration on request. The airline hoped to bring some fun of flying to people's home this winter, and saw the initiative as a way to keep the cabin crew match fit ahead of the resumption of flights next year. The trial took place on December the 17th and 18th and was open to all residents in central London, so that's zones 1 and 2, over the age of 18. Availability was limited, so a form had to be filled out on Deliveroo and a delivery slot confirmed ahead of the trial. Tina Milton, Director of Cabin Services at Easyjet, said, "As much as our customers have missed flying in recent months, our cabin crew have really missed doing what they love to do best, serving our customers. So this trial gives us a great opportunity to bring Easyjet to customers' doors with our trolley delivery service. So for now, we will focus on ensuring our service remains as good on the ground as it does in the air, and we look forward to welcoming everybody back on board in 2021. Age UK, for those of you that don't know, are the UK's leading charity helping the elderly with information, advice, healthcare, well-being, and campaigning for rights of the elderly and raising funds to do all of this work. And for more information, you can actually go onto the ageuk.org.uk website. So there we go.
I love it. I mean, I think it's a really nice idea. I quite like the idea of sort of booking it, rocking up, and sort of, I really want them to bring the trolley as well. That's I don't want it to come in a van or on a scooter. I want them to push the trolley down my street, and I want to.
So I'm just watching the video.
I'd like a gin and tonic brought to my front door. That'd be lovely.
Absolutely, I think this is the future. I love the idea of the trolley just on the drive. Maybe the safety briefing there is probably a little much. I've got to be honest.
Is there an armed escort that follows?
I
these
thought you
passengers
guys get
around?
that service anyway, Matt, Andy. I thought you already have that service with the airline you fly for. You get luxury drinks brought to the flight deck and
that'd be nice.
meals.
That'd be lovely.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yes, absolutely. Richard Adams in the chat room apparently, but I haven't got a chat room here, so somebody could look into that.
Richard Adams says, new advert coming soon. Get trolleyed with Easyjet.
I see what he did there. That's very good. Yes, okay. And as Carlos pointed out, that is the end of the commercial section now. If you would like to see some of the videos and the pictures, or indeed read more in depth of the stories that we featured this week, then make sure you take yourself to the show notes that are either in the YouTube feed that will appear after this, but also if you're listening to the audio version of the show, you'll find in there all the details. You'll find all the details in there. You can also, don't forget, while we're doing the live show, you can send us messages and we can pop them in on screen. The WhatsApp number into the studio here is +44 757 22 491 66. That's +44 757 22 491 66, and it's podcast@planetalkinguk.com is the email address.
And Nev, we've got a very, very special segment coming up from you next, haven't we?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we haven't done a Nev's passenger experience for a while because I haven't been flying anywhere. So,
no, quite.
As it's episode 350, I thought, why not do a bit of a reprise of the Nev's passenger experience that I did back in September of 2019. This is where I took a Finnair flight to Helsinki and back. And actually, I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, well, I remember why I did take that flight now, because it was one of the only times I've ever flown. In fact, it was the only time I've ever flown on the A350. I was going to take a BA flight, but that would have just been an A320 there and back. So I thought, I'm going to have a go at the A350. I had to alter my flight time slightly because they also run an A321 aircraft a couple of times a day to and from Helsinki. But this is my first trip on the Finnair A350. So let's have a look. Hello there, Nev here with another Nev's Passenger Experience, and this is all about my flight on a Finnair A350-900 to Helsinki from London Heathrow, and here we are in the terminal itself. This is Terminal 3, and I actually arrived at Terminal 2 for some strange reason to go to Helsinki from Heathrow, so I had to walk quite a long way, as you can probably see. There's a slightly smoother ride on the Travelator thing, I've got to say, so that's quite nice. But here we are coming up to the entrance to Terminal 3 at Heathrow. This has all been refurbished for a couple of years now, and it's very smart compared to what it used to be, that's for certain. And yeah, so here we are. Getting ready to go inside, and I had use of the very nice Finnair lounge, which is also shared with Cathay Pacific, and very swish it is too, I must say. Very much nicer than the BA one. And they've got some nice food and refreshments there, as you can see. So that's a cappuccino, some sausages, bacon, bread and butter, and very tasty it was, actually. I really enjoyed that. But, entirely unhealthy, but there we go. But they've done a very nice job of the design inside the lounge, as you can see. And the quality of the soft furnishings, the furniture in general, is exceptional. This is a nice thing. How about this for a USB and mains charging drawer? So you just open it and there you are. You've got a 13 amp socket and 2 USB charging points. Here is our aircraft. It's an A350-900, as I mentioned, Finnair. They use it on the London to Helsinki routes, but it's also from Helsinki to Hong Kong and the Far East generally. This particular aircraft is an A350-941, registration Oscar Hotel Lima Whiskey Hotel, and just managed to catch it as it vanished into thin air. See what I did there? Yes, so this is it's coming on to stand from its trip from Helsinki to Terminal 3 at London Heathrow. And the weather was reasonable. So this is the boarding gate itself. Quite a nice area actually, and it was very well organised by the folks there. This is the economy seat, and it is very roomy indeed, let me tell you, as you can see. So a nice screen there, and the huge Rolls-Royce engines on this aircraft. The size of the wing absolutely is astounding. Until you've sat on one of these, you cannot believe how long this wing is. Now here's a camera view. This is the underneath camera, and this is the moving map display, and yeah, it's very well designed actually, very neat. This is us being pushed back from the gate with the tow truck. And this is the forward view now. You'll just see on the top of the aircraft there the Wi-Fi antenna as well, and a nice shot of Concorde Alpha Bravo just at the holding point of runway 27 left here at Heathrow. That aircraft should still be flying in my opinion, but there we are. We've had that conversation many times before. So this is lining up onto just coming over the threshold of 27 left at Heathrow, and you'll notice straight away how quiet the aircraft is. I've not really sort of mucked about with the audio on this at all. I've just recorded it straight off my iPhone and stuck it into my editing program. But even when we apply takeoff power, it is remarkably quiet, I've got to say. And well, I'm really looking forward to this bit, I must say. The view from this camera is really good. My video doesn't really do it justice. Sorry about the flickering. It's unfortunately something you can't get rid of with the iPhone. But you'll just see a British Airways Airbus in front of us going for an intersection departure. So that would normally be me, hopefully. So this is the top camera view, the forward view, so you can see the antenna again of the Wi-Fi, and that aircraft in front has now departed. So it's our turn to go, and this is very nice indeed, because just have a listen to this. And that's as loud as it gets. It is incredibly quiet. And the skipper's doing a nice job of tracking the centre line there as well, isn't he? Mind you, the wind was fairly mild, so fairly moderate, so it wasn't too bad. So it's quite easy to keep it straight down the runway, I would imagine. But this was obviously a reduced thrust takeoff, flex takeoff, I would imagine, because we used up quite a bit of runway. And we're airborne, and still very quiet, isn't it? Have you noticed? And here's the gear coming up. So just a little bang from the main gear doors. So this is coming west out of Heathrow. So we're coming up to the vista that is the Staines Reservoir. Not the sort of place you'd want to go on holiday particularly, but there it is. And just coming over the M25, and we're going to turn right very shortly. And you'll hear the flaps coming in, the first stage of flap coming in a second, which is quite noisy actually. I was quite surprised. I was sitting directly over the wing. There it is. Anyway, not exactly a showstopper, but notable, I thought. So this is us just a bit further out from London now, just getting ready to head east and northeast across the North Sea. Still very quiet. Now, I've got a economy comfort seat, which I paid an extra £20 for, but it makes a heck of a difference. It's really comfortable. Great moving map display, again, on the seat backs, and really high resolution. This is nice as well. You actually get sort of a pilot type view, so you can see the altimeter, the compass and everything. I paid €7 for this rustic and filling baguette. Oh, and some wine as well. That was very nice. But they only serve tea, coffee and stuff. Now, have a look at this. Flight level 410. That's the cruising altitude that we were at. And that's higher than normal, isn't it? I mean, most aircraft are sort of 37, 38,000 feet. But we were up there at flight level 410. So that was great. And just coming into the outskirts of Finland at the moment. And yeah, beautiful day actually. Lots of clouds, lots of fluffy clouds, but it was very nice. Again, still really quiet in the cabin. The aircraft was nowhere full either, by the way. It's probably about 2/3 full, I would say, something like that. But yeah, very, very smooth, and you know, just it's a very different experience to most other aircraft I've been on. Just taking a left turn here. I think we're just joining the localizer to runway 22 right at Helsinki, and just about to deploy the first stage of flaps, I would imagine, as well. So yeah, the views you get from these onboard cameras are really, really good. None of the flickering that you can see on the video here. It's really, really high quality, and I think that they've worked really hard to get the interior of this aircraft as nice as they possibly can, and I think they've definitely succeeded. And Finnair, the crew did a fantastic job, and I've got to say they're a lot better than BA in that respect, which is not something you normally hear me say. Right, here we are on finals for runway 22 right, and still very quiet, even with full flaps deployed, gears down, but there's very little noise in the cabin, and that's the most significant thing. Don't forget, the other thing about this aircraft, of course, is that it's got the reduced cabin altitude, so I think it's probably around about 6,000 or 6,500 feet. Doesn't make a lot of difference on the short haul legs like I did, so that was about 2.5 hour trip to Helsinki, but on the long haul sectors, the 10, 12, 13 hour sectors, it will make a very big difference, I would imagine. So yeah, very, very nice indeed. So yeah, just about a mile out now, coming over to the main airport at Helsinki, Vantaa. And this airport has got very big over the last 10 years. I've not been there actually since about 2006, but it's got 2 terminals, very nice facilities in there. And yeah, overall a very nice experience, I've got to say. So here we are, just about to come over the threshold of 22 right, and our chums at the front wanted to get off at the first exit, I think. So it's a very, very smooth touchdown. And you could barely feel it, but then there was an incredibly high amount of braking effort required here, which is why my camera's gone a bit wobbly and we're all sort of being pushed forward in our seats, because I think the turn-off he really wanted to get was this one coming up here, but it was just a little bit too fast, so he thought, no, I shall take the next one instead to save wearing the brakes out, which he did. And as you can see, really, really just the whole experience was really, really good. I think that they've tried very hard to get the passenger experience up on this aircraft. There's no question about it. Carlos and I will be going on the A350 1000 that BA have in November when we go to the Dubai Air Show, so I'm really looking forward to that as well. So we're just clearing the runway here, and bit of finish action there, and a bit of flap retraction sound as well, as you would expect. I think he's saying thanks for flying Finnair. So just coming up to the stand now, and I cannot tell you how good it is to see these views. I know I keep going on about it, but they really do look good when you can see the front and the top and the forward cameras. Really good. And this airport is a lot busier than it used to be, that's for sure. Lots of flights that go over to the Far East, Hong Kong and China generally from here, because it's a very good route back into Europe for the Far East Airlines. Haven't seen this airline before. It looks like a 787-9. So that's a new one for me. And see all sorts of different types of aircraft. So we're just coming on to stand. Perfectly lined up by the crew there. Very nice indeed, and it's great that you can see all the ground crew getting ready to put the chocks in and put the external power in and connect their headphones in and all this sort of stuff. So it's such a different experience to see all of this. So I'm really pleased that I went on this flight with Finnair and the Airbus A350-900. I can't recommend it highly enough. Absolutely superb.
If you want to take your knowledge to the next level, sign up for a subscription at the A320 Lounge. Our online video courses combine whiteboard-style lessons with full failure demonstrations shot in 4K in state-of-the-art simulators using a professional production team. Go into your next simulator session with confidence, having seen failures run in real time and with the background knowledge to answer any questions from your instructor. To get more information and to sign up, visit a320lounge.com.
I tell you what, it's just as well they can't hear what we're talking about when we're not on air, isn't it?
Never take financial advice from a pilot. That's all I'll say after that.
No, okay, of course. Quite, absolutely. Definitely. Absolutely. Right, okay. So welcome to everybody who's just joined us from Airshow World. Hi, Stu. Thank you very much for you and your wonderful people coming to say hello. And good news, Armando, because they always arrive just in time for one might argue the best part of the show.
You guys keep thinking that it's coming over from Airshow World. I think I send out a notification for military, right? And then people join up. Yeah.
Do you? Right.
I do.
Okay.
Anyways, since we're right in the middle of the show, this week we don't even have to rush it. So, Matt, if you're ready, hit the button.
So the first story in the military segment comes to us this week from Air Force-technology.com. And it's an aircraft, a military aircraft that I've been on a few times, and I do like this one. This is the A400M, and the Belgian Air Force has received its first A400M, a military transport aircraft designed to carry loads to tactical locations. Airbus is set to deliver 6 additional units to the Belgian Air Force. The customer received the first aircraft at the A400M final assembly line in Seville, Spain. Subsequently, is performed a ferry flight, I should say, to its base at Melsbroek in Belgium to join the 15th Air Wing Transport. The A400M fleet at the Belgian base will include a total of 8 aircraft, 7 from the Belgian Air Force and 1 from the Luxembourg Armed Forces. The Luxembourg unit was delivered early this year. Airbus Defence and Space Military Aircraft head Alberto Guterres said with the delivery of this aircraft, all launch customers are now equipped with the A400M. MSN 106 will join the Luxembourg aircraft in the binational unit operated jointly with Belgium. Despite challenges due to COVID-19, he said our teams have achieved all 10 aircraft deliveries scheduled this year, bringing the global fleet in operation to 98 aircraft. The company is scheduled to deliver the second A400M for Belgium in early next year. Now, we saw these at Riyadh a few years back when we actually managed to get to Riyadh. Actually, probably 3 years ago, I'd imagine this is now. I had a full tour on one of these, actually, with Pip on one of the days. And it was great to see on board the A400M. Good bit of kit, this, Armando.
Yeah, it's no secret that the A400 is one of my favorite airplanes. And I've spent a lot of time on C-130s, probably 600 hours total on C-130s as an aircrew member. And the A400 is just an incredible airplane. And what's good about this for an Air Force like the Belgian Air Force is this airplane is the IKEA of airplanes. So it'll do everything. It'll do low level, it'll do combat, it'll do humanitarian missions. You can put seating pallets in it, so you can carry probably 200, 250 people in it. I don't know the exact numbers. You can do paratrooper drops with it. So especially nowadays, in the middle of the pandemic where everybody is trying to move cargo and supplies from A to B, especially in Europe, an airplane like this is incredibly capable. And with its short field and unimproved airfield capabilities, it's just an incredible force multiplier, as we used to say, for the Belgian Air Force. So you'll probably start seeing it in the skies over Europe, going everywhere.
Actually, there was an A400M flying from Finland to Bryce Norton just a couple of days ago, and it flew over my house at about 8,000 feet. A very distinctive sound, absolutely. Nothing quite sounds like it in the sky at all.
The thing that scares me the most about that, Nev, is that you successfully managed to identify a military aircraft.
Yes. Only because Flight Radar 24 was showing it. And I heard this sound outside. I thought, what on earth is that? The thing that slightly concerned me, though, with Armando's reference to IKEA, presumably then the A400M doesn't come with the right number of screws.
Or too many.
Good point.
When you buy one.
Does it need an Allen key?
Yeah, it's all the same screws that are used in the Airbus helicopters, as well as their the desks that they designed it on.
First flew in 2009, so the A400M is still, I would say, relatively new.
Okay, so we're running a little bit late. So if we
So
could
Nev,
move on to
you've got this next one, going to Borough, BAE Borough.
It's Bruff, actually.
All right, Bruff. All right, Bruff.
To correct you. Irritate you, but this is on the BBC website. It's actually quite a sad story, actually, because it says that British Aerospace at Bruff aircraft manufacturing ends after 104 years. Well, BAE have built aircraft there since 1916, but after the final delivery of Hawk jets to Qatar, it will focus on engineering. Almost 400 manufacturing job losses were announced at the site in October 2017, and despite the ending of a more than a century of history, BAE Systems says that the factory had a bright future. Well, the site confirmed 238 staff were taking voluntary redundancy, with 135 manufacturing workers moving into other areas of the business. About 20 people are at risk of compulsory redundancy. BAE Systems said that 650 people will work on engineering projects, including Tempest next generation combat aircraft and the Dreadnought class of ballistic submarines from January. Dave Caulfield, site director, described it as an emotional and sad day, with departing colleagues honoured with a traditional hammering out. People grab a hammer and bang it on benches as they walk from the hangar, he said. There won't be a dry eye in the house when we hammer out the last of our manufacturing colleagues. Well, the aircraft began manufacturing in Borough in 1916 with the opening of the factory by aviation pioneer Robert Blackburn. More than 80 different aircraft were built by the firm, including the Mercury, Buccaneer and the Swordfish, which were used during World War II. A series of mergers led to the company being acquired by the forerunner of BAE in the 1960s. And as always with these sorts of situations, there will be people that have been working there for 10, 20, 30 years or more, and families actually working in that sort of facility. So it's very sad indeed to see the loss of so many jobs there.
Mm.
Yeah, it is always sad. We've had the same thing happen here in some of our manufacturing facilities, but especially with the unmanned aircraft and more technology going to space. British Aerospace is a huge company, so they'll be fine as a company. But yeah, I'm sure the community will take a hit. So, speaking of manufacturing, this next story is from the Aviationist, and it is the first serial production Su-57 is delivered to the Russian Aerospace Forces. This aircraft, which is actually the second one to be serially built, was delivered a year after the first one crashed during pre-delivery testing. The Russian Air Force received this airplane on December 25th, 2020. It is their first one, Su-57 Felon, fifth generation fighter aircraft. So according to a source in the military-industrial complex, quoted by Russian news, the aircraft entered service with one of the aviation regiments in the Southern Military District, and 4 more Su-57s will be delivered in 2021. Later, that news source quoted another source in the military saying that the aircraft will be used to test hypersonic air-launched weapons at the 929th VP Chaklov State Flight Test Center. Another Russian news agency reported instead that the aircraft will be tested at Aktubinsk before moving to another operational unit. So this kind of testing can't be performed or can't be confirmed officially. Spotters were able to confirm that the Felon's final base, as the aircraft was photographed during a stopover at Novosibirsk airport with the logo of the Chkalov State Flight Test Center on the fuselage. The crash of the first aircraft, which is actually the first one since its first flight in 2010, was caused by a failure of the tail control system. After that crash, Sukhoi reportedly underwent some changes in the management of the company, and after the investigation, a number of technical improvements were applied to the second aircraft, delaying this delivery by at least a year. Among these improvements, it was mentioned that the aircraft saw new hydraulic actuators for the flight controls replaced by electromechanical ones. And this company may also have to replace that crashed Su-57 at its own expense. This article particularly went on to some of the changes that they made to this aircraft and what some of the capabilities are for this Su-57. I think a lot of Russia's Air Force, they're putting this in place to compete with the F-35. But it's something that we'll, I guess, keep an eye on in the future.
I was going to say, it looks very much like an F-22, Armando, I have to say.
Yeah, that's always the case, isn't it?
If you put these side by side, there's not much difference between the two.
No.
Yeah, and there was an article that we actually cut out, despite, I know this is going to make everybody sad, but we do have to cut the military segment a little bit short. There was an article about a MiG-21 that just crashed recently. I believe it was in India. And it's amazing that, we're talking about the Su-57 while there's still MiG-21s flying all over the world, really. In Africa, I know in Romania, I was flying against MiG-21s doing aerial intercepts and things like that. So to be in the Air Force nowadays, you have to sort of plan for everything from a 1961 MiG-21 to the cutting edge Su-57 as your potential adversary. So it's an interesting world.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, we're going to need to move on, I'm afraid. And in the change to the build details in our show notes, we're actually going to move on to chatting to our guests. Now, it's been lovely to have them on the show, but there is actually a reason why they've come to join us. And perhaps the easiest thing for us to do is, Matt, perhaps you'd like to explain to us what you've been up to during lockdown.
Well, yeah, we've been pretty busy, actually, to the point where we've actually joked that we would struggle for time if we had to go back to flying anytime soon. So we're rushing to get as much done as we can before, hopefully, not too long from now, we get to go back on the line and get back in the air.
Okay.
I'll let Andy start with giving you some information about what we've been doing.
Yeah, well, as you all know, we started the A320 podcast about 5 years ago, and we were hoping to get a few listeners and use the time to develop our own knowledge as we went along. And before we knew it, we had listeners all over the world asking us to produce specific content covering specific failures that weren't understood well or had little coverage in the manuals. And then not long after that, we were getting many requests to produce videos, make a YouTube channel, even had suggestions to stream live on Twitch. All sorts of things. I mean, I'd be no good on Twitch. I'd mess that up royally. So that's when the A320 Lounge, which you saw the advert for that before, became a viable idea. And as you all know, Never's our cameraman, and Matt, of course, has also helped us with the initial editing for our first set of videos. And we've now built up quite a large library of content on the A320 Lounge, of the vast majority of the failures covered in the type rating and recurrent simulator sessions. The pilot community who listen to us and view our content have given us loads of feedback, which enabled us to improve our content over the years. Then suddenly the pandemic hit. And as the pandemic hit, pilots all across the globe were suddenly grounded. And it doesn't take long, especially in a job like ours, for your skill and knowledge to become degraded. And it's vital that all pilots keep up to date with procedures, technical knowledge, and regulatory changes. So during lockdown, Matt had the idea of running an online webinar covering the important memory items on the A320. And memory items, for those of you that don't know, are sets of checklists we must know off by heart in case we need to use them immediately in flight. So we offered this session for free, and we expected to maybe get around 40 to 50 people signed up. And in the end, 500 people turned up to watch it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was just crazy.
Yeah.
So Matt, over to you.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, we were pretty excited about this. Initially, because you can set on the webinar software to have it where you can not show the other people in the webinar how many people have joined. And we used this setting. We thought it would be pretty embarrassing if only 2 or 3 people turned up. So we quite quickly became evident we didn't need to use that button anymore. So that was good. And this basically gave us the idea for what we are discussing today and have launched today, which is the 737 Lounge. So as the months rolled by, with more and more pilots losing their currency and being able to or unable to fly or get in the classroom to do refresher courses, the idea to do these online emerged. So as everyone will have experienced, businesses seem to have moved on to Teams, Zoom and Skype over the last year. Now, we decided to do things a little differently. Firstly, the 737 is not our aircraft type, as you'll know, but we know a man whose knowledge is literally second to none on this. If there's anyone listening that's done a 737 type rating in the last 25 years, probably at a very well-known establishment down on the south coast, you may well know this person who we've got. And his name is Richard Kosher. And he has worked in aviation in total for over 45 years, and he spent the last 20 years technical instructor on the 737. He's probably forgotten more than most people know about this aeroplane. So then we thought about how we could do this in a way that's more visually appealing and engaging than a Zoom call. And it has to, of course, always be worthwhile for the student. So with the help of a colleague who you may have actually seen a quick cameo there in our A320 Lounge video. He's the guy that is the role of the captain in those videos. So he's been helping us out with those. He's actually helped us because he owns a studio in London with his brother, and we've set about making a live interactive learning environment with those guys. Now, they really know what they're doing. They've got customers who include Sky Sports and the Renault Formula One team, and they use top of the range technology and professional broadcast equipment. So he's come together with us to come up with the design of the course and the webinar. And during the course, students can actually ask questions live. And once someone's asked the question, what they've said will appear on screen for everyone to see. And in real time, Richard will explain the answer to these questions. In addition to this, he'll be throwing questions back. So Richard will give a question to the chat room, and there'll be like a poll question, and everyone can give their answers, and you can see what percentage of the chat room got the question right. So it's going to be a fantastic resource, and we think that it's going to be of huge value to all those that attend.
It sounds very interactive, actually. I really
yeah,
like
I mean, that was the main thing, really. We wanted to create a classroom environment that has all the benefits of the classroom and being there and the interaction, but all the other benefits of being able to experience that in your bedroom, the living room, the kitchen, or wherever you want to be.
Whatever your chosen quiet space is, if you like.
Exactly.
Exactly. So that's where we got up to with that, and that launches this month. And along with that, we've also launched a new podcast, the 737 Podcast. So this is basically a very similar podcast to the A320 for 737 pilots, but with two new presenters as well, because of course Matt and myself don't fly the 737. So Ian and Mark, who present it, actually came to us with the idea initially, and we've all worked together on it. But these guys have put a mass amount of work in, and it's really down to those guys that were actually launching it. So Ian and Mark are both ex-A320 guys, because that's how they found our podcast. But the airline they worked for, as has been the case over recent years, went bust. So they've now working for other airlines, and they're now on the 737. Ian and Mark are both instructors on it as well now. And they realised that nothing like the A320 podcast existed for the 737. So together, we've all worked together to come up with the 737 Podcast. And today, on iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts from, the first 3 episodes have now dropped and available to download. And I was just checking before that they have been downloaded, so they do exist there. And we've got all the content for the next few months ready to go out as well. And basically, we're looking to do exactly the same as we did the 320 Podcast, build up a community, find out what the 737 guys out there want to know, want to learn about, start emailing us, dropping us messages on Facebook. The website, at the moment, it's a holding page. We're just waiting for it to be finished. And then we'll build it up from there, the same as with the 320 Podcast. So now we're covering the very technical aeroplane and the tractor. Sorry, the 737.
Lovely. That's a way of doing it. Yes, absolutely. Now, because I mean, this is aimed obviously predominantly at like pilots and people like that. But of course, I mean, Carlos has developed a rather expensive habit during lockdown. I think it's safe to say. But of course, I mean, you're finding this sort of thing fascinating as well for what you've been doing in lockdown, Carlos.
Oh,
or not?
Sorry, I was on mute then.
Lovely.
I was going to say, I think
that ruined the flow. Thanks for that.
Expensive. It's expensive button that was.
Yeah.
Just like the other ones I brought. No, I think seriously though, for me, as someone who's got into simming over the last kind of year, and I've been buying various bits and pieces, and then this Christmas I got a very special present from Gemma to add to the sim.
Is that this one here that I've got in front of me? I'm going to put. Is that the picture you're talking about?
That is the one. Yeah, that is the latest part addition to my sim that I have here at home. I think for me, obviously, with
it hurts my head. It's good. I look at it; it's so expensive.
with X-Plane, I mean, I think Microsoft Flight Sim do it as well, but because I use X-Plane 11, and for me, with the game with the sim X-Plane 11, you do get like a basic operations, like a manual as such, so you can actually start the aircraft from cold, as you know, on the sim itself, using various bits and pieces and stuff. But I think this would be brilliant for people in the sim world like me who you know, do this in the sim, but to learn more about the inner workings of all the FMC and all the other bits and pieces of the aircraft. So I think it's a really good idea for people in the sim world.
Yeah,
you know, Carlos, too, I'll say to Matt and Andy too that I was just talking to my wife this morning about how aviation, you're always studying for a check ride, right? Even right now, I just finished a check ride about 3 months ago, and then I got a different check ride coming up in April. And you occasionally get the gouge for an evaluator, and you know some of the questions that they're going to ask. So something like this, where you can actually go to a podcast episode and find a specific system or specific failure mode or something that, you know, my mind, there's no way that all of us can remember all the systems on the airplane. You know, cursory information on everything. You generally know what you need for the check ride, and then that may be a different body of knowledge for what you actually need to fly the airplane. So something like this is great when you're coming up on your check ride. You have a 30-minute commute to work or the airport. Plug in a system, you listen to it, you get refreshed on it, you get a different viewpoint on it, and then hopefully, you know, for different types of learners, it sticks. So I commend you guys for doing something like this for different airplanes.
Actually, I'll give you an ideal thing, which is one of the things just before we move on, which is what I done the other day. I used all my checklists. I went through all the different bits that you get with the sim, and I took off. Everything was fine. Got up to crew, or up towards cruise level, and the screen went blank, goes black. I'm like, why has the screen gone black? Look down, the PC is still running. The noise is still there. The aircraft noise is still there. And basically, what I'd failed to set was the pressurization for the cabin. And
so you did a Helios, basically.
What X-Plane 11 does is, if you forget to switch on the actual pressurization system, it will turn the screen black, and so you can't see nothing. So you eventually...
Virtual hypoxia.
Yeah.
There's a cool.
I haven't made that mistake since then. And
on that note, one thing I was going to add, and this is for all pilots out there, using the IKEA competencies, the first barrier really at the bottom of the list is knowledge. And if everybody has, even if it's just a good working knowledge, it doesn't have to be exceptional. Nobody's got exceptional knowledge. Matt and myself will admit, we may look like we know loads and loads of stuff, but you can ask us a question, I go, oh, don't know. As long as you've got a very good working knowledge of the aeroplane, that first barrier can save you from a lot of issues later on. And that was the whole point in all of this, to give all pilots now on two of the widest selling airframes in the world, to give them that extra bit of knowledge so that if one day they do need it, it's there ready.
Yeah, and I think there's sorry, Matt, you can tell us to move on, but I could talk about this for a long time too. If you talk to old guys like Al or Captain Jeff or Captain Nick.
No, experienced. But, you meant experienced.
Yeah, that's the term you want.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Back in the 70s and the 80s and even the early 90s, when you went for a check ride, you were expected to know almost an engineering level of aircraft systems, and even in the Air Force. So I went in the 90s into the Air Force, and we were expected to know the same thing. It was a flight engineer level knowledge. And over the years, that has kind of transformed, because they figured out that it was a bit overkill, especially more technologically advanced aircraft, that it was overkill. And the pilots don't really need to know how many screws there are on the leading edge of the inner de-ice boot, right? It doesn't help me in the airplane if the boot fails or anything like that. So there's been a more practical application, and the check rides have gone to a much more practical application, which is that level of knowledge that most pilots need now.
Exactly.
And with all conversations like that, virtually everything has gone straight over my head.
That's what aircraft do, Matt.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah.
Just to mention before that, of course, we've got these webinars that you can book. It's probably best to give you the dates if anyone out there does want to sign up. So the first one launches in just under 2 weeks. So we've got the 19th and 20th of January, and it's 2 days. It runs from 9:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the evening GMT. And then the second date we've got so far is the 25th and 26th of Feb. The same. So if you want to head over to our website, as Andy said, it's 737lounge.com, and the podcast one is 737podcast.com.
Very cool. Okay, we'll take a very quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this message.
If you want to improve your 737 knowledge, why not attend one of our live technical refresher courses? These 2-day webinars are not just a Zoom call, nor are they just an instructor stood in front of a whiteboard. Our professional production team in their London studio uses the latest technology to bring you a fully interactive and engaging experience. Ask your instructor questions live at any time. For more information and to sign up, visit 737lounge.com.
Okay, so some of you will remember that just before Christmas, actually, we started a new series with what I can only describe as the legend that is George Lee. So Nick very kindly did one of his marvellous In Conversation With for us, and that's involving this particular book here, or this is the reason why I've got it to say George Lee, wonderful chap. Part 1, if you haven't already seen it, you'll find it in, I can't remember, I think it was episode 349. Is available on there, so if you haven't seen part 1, then you can go back to watch that at some point. But it's we pick up basically where we left off, where he was telling us all about his lovely wife.
It's amazing. During that tour, you met a very pretty lady who seemed to find something in a junior technician that she found attractive, despite you getting her very wet on the back of your motorcycle. That's when you met your wife, wasn't it?
It was, Nick. To back up one, yes, on the motorcycle. My motorcycling interest had actually started at Halton when one of my combat line modelling friends, he actually had a motorbike himself. And we weren't allowed to have motorcycles on base at RAF Halton as an apprentice, so we kept them down the local village, probably illegally, in a storage shed, a village called Wendover. And that dear motorbike, yeah, very special. So when I met Maren, that was part of my life, and she kind of had to get used to it, I suppose. We met at a Halloween party at the Gliding Club, and I'd never met her, seen her even before. She used to come up to the Gliding Club because she was with a farmer and his family from Norway. Maren came over to improve her English. And this farmer, because of his engineering skills, was a special member of the Gliding Club. So Maren actually used to come up to the airfield quite often and sit in the bus and have her cup of tea. And I was always very busy, never went into the bus. I was either on the winch or driving tractors or flying. So we never met until that Halloween party. And yes, the old saying, eyes met across a crowded room, and the rest was history.
Well, it certainly sounds like you hit it off pretty quickly. Now, it must have been very hard for you because your dream of becoming an Air Force pilot had been dashed. But although you had the gliding on the side to keep you interested, what did you think about your future? Did you really imagine you were ever going to do what you wanted?
I never lost that dream, Nick, never. It was in there. It wasn't going to be taken away. Flying just meant so much for me, to me. Can I just say that I started my aviation career gliding. I know people will think I'm biased, and of course I am, but the reality, I feel this very strongly, that starting an aviation career, developing an aviation interest at all, the best way to start is through gliding. It really is. It rams home the fundamentals, stick and rudder usage, of course, but airmanship, basic airmanship, lookout, all of that sort of thing, a feel for the air. And those elements, that foundation will stand any budding pilot in very good stead right throughout his aviation career. But to come back to this friend, who became a close friend, Tug Wilson, he was a Hastings pilot, the CFI of the Gliding Club. He knew my passion for flying. And yeah, he got the application off station. So then I was able to paddle my own canoe and the assessments and everything at Biggin Hill went well, and I was accepted. So I had to go to South Cerney for officer training, which was interesting in its own right, and then on towards the flying training system.
Now, it seems that everything was slotting into place for you. How did you get on? You'd had a difficult start to your Air Force career, but now you were in the flying training system. Were you worried? Did you excel? What happened?
Well, I started my powered flying training on the dear Venerable Chipmunk, which I thoroughly enjoyed, actually. And yeah, it was a great machine as a basic trainer. I do remember a mistake I made one day, and that I was feeling perhaps a little bit off, maybe a little bit of a cold developing, and I stupidly, instead of crying off the training sortie, went along with it, and I'll never forget that flight. I learned a very valuable lesson that if one has a little bit of anything, you do not fly, end of story. And certainly in an unpressurized, little bit drafty Chipmunk, it wasn't my finest moment, but no, the aircraft was very good. I forget how long that lasted, frankly, how many hours, but that was the start. And then, of course, on to the Jet Provost at basic flying training at RAF Leeming. The training went well, and I was always, I have to say, a very competitive person by nature. Looking back, I realized that from very early in life, we had a relaxing, what should be in casual, friendly game of cards as a family. Like, I had to win. I mean, it's as simple as that. I just had to win. So the competitive spirit was in there, and that manifested at Leeming because I managed to win 4 of the 6 prizes that were available, including the Sword of Honor. So, I mean, of course, I would say the course went very well.
Well, it went excellently. You must have looked wonderful at the front of the graduation parade.
Yes, I led the parade with the sword and everything, which was really wonderful. And Marion and I, our courtship continued. She was in London with a small group of Norwegian girls, but we saw each other reasonably regularly. Now, the RAF had what I consider to be a rather Victorian attitude towards marriage, in that they considered an RAF officer not to be sufficiently mature to get married until the ripe old age of 25. And if one chose to get married below that age, one suffered the consequences, in that you didn't get any marriage allowance, just as an example, so you couldn't have a married quarter. But Marion and I were deeply in love, and there was no way we were waiting until 25. And we agreed that at the end of the BFTS, we would get married. And that happened in December 68.
Now, that's actually quite a difficult thing for most people to cope with, because being a bachelor and involving yourself in your flying course is probably enough for most people without having a wife waiting for you at home to distract you, as it were. So obviously you were able to stay single-mindedly on track.
Well, as I say, the marriage didn't happen until the end of the course, but I did see her. Either I went down to London or she came up to the Yorkshire area, and we saw each other reasonably regularly. But then, yes, things moved on. We moved to Shrewsbury, where we had a little flat together, and money was unbelievably tight. Looking back, it's hard to imagine how we actually managed, but it was a good training, I guess, financial management for later in life. And at that time, aviation-wise, and there was a gap between BFTS and going to advanced flying at RAF Valley in Anglesey. So that's where they sent me, and I flew with the Vampire, and the the pilots were ex-World War II non-commissioned NCOs, very experienced, very, very, very competent pilots. So I flew with them, and we just went round and round and flew radar circuits following the directions of these trainee air traffic controllers. So it was enjoyable. The Vampire I didn't fall in love with the machine. The cockpit was relatively small and tight, and I'm sort of 6'2", 6'3". So I did sort of crunch myself up in the cockpit a little bit, but no, it was good. And married life was wonderful, of course, finally. One note of tragedy during that time was that one evening there was a knock on the door of our little apartment, and I opened the door and there was a policeman. I thought, oh, what on earth have I done? And he came with the rather sad news that my father had died at the far too young age of 52. So that was a very, very sad note indeed. From there on to RAF Valley, Advanced Flying Training.
Now, you flew, I guess, because of your size, in the slightly larger Hunter instead of the tiny Gnat. But you did very well on your course at Valley as well, didn't you?
Yes, you're right, Nick. The Gnat, I have flown in a Gnat as a passenger during a Red Arrows practice session, which was amazing. But yes, very cramped, very tight. So I ended up, it was wonderful. It couldn't have worked out better because the largest setup was the Gnat. That was over at one side of the airfield at Valley. And then way over the other side near the beach was this small little Hunter-like squadron. It was just beautiful, very small setup. And we had wonderful instructors, a really good boss, and away from a lot of the flying training stuff that went on over the other side of the airfield. And I've started off, of course, in the Hunter T7, and then finally went on solo on the 6, the F6, which was an amazing experience because there's a significant thrust difference between the T7 and the F6. There really is. Secondly, these sixes had all the weapons and armament and gun side, you name it, removed. So the weight was significantly lower than a normal operational role fit. And the performance, like the power to weight ratio, was stunning. I think I caught up with the airplane on that first flight about 10,000 feet. It was absolutely, but everything I've read and heard about the Hunter was just absolutely underlined for me. It is the most magnificent aircraft to fly, and I just feel so privileged to have flown it. The handling is superb, the stability, everything about the aircraft was just right. And the saying that if an aircraft looks right, it usually is right, came to be proven to me completely.
That's very true. I think we all felt the same about it. What was the nickname we used to give that Hunter F6?
Yeah, they called it the GT6.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, loving this series. Absolutely fantastic. Really is. Good fun. And thank you to Nick, as always, for all his hard work. There is no question master like it, is there?
Nick does such a good... Honestly, he should be doing documentaries on, well, Discovery.
Yeah, well, quite. Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's been a fascinating series, as always. More to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah. So we're going to have a quick show here because obviously you guys saw the quadrant that I had earlier on, but I've got it here with me now. So I thought I would bring it up so you could see when the camera. There we go. So this is my new addition to the sim at home. Everything works. All the throttles work perfectly, and you've got all the toga switches, auto throttle disconnect, speed brake, flap lever, which actually is, you can actually select the different flaps. And also, you've got the trim wheels, which do obviously work as well. And cut-off switches here, parking brake. And, it lights up. You can probably see on it, you can see on the camera there, it does actually light up. There's actually lights in there, which...
in fact, actually, yeah, I've got some of the pictures you sent me earlier. Look, there you go. You can see it actually lit up there.
If we ever doubted that your wife loved you, we don't anymore.
Yeah,
it is a hell of a bit of kit, and actually the guy who sells these, James Brown, is in the chat.
Oh, he's in the chat room now, is he? Okay.
Yeah, James is the one who sells these. He's got an awesome website. If you take yourselves over, Matt will obviously put these in the show notes, but if you look on Flight Sim PM-UK
James, genuinely, if you're interested in coming, we'd love to talk to you about these amazing bits of kit, to be brutally honest. So ping us an email, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We'd love to talk to you about these amazing things. Seriously, I've never heard chat like it between these massive tech geeks all about these quadrants. We need to know more about these, I think.
I think Matt and Andy are waiting for the A320 one to be released.
Yeah, we've been geeking out massively over the A320 stuff you've got on there. So
if I can smuggle one into the house, I'll have one.
Oh dear me!
No, you guys just need to ask the wives really nicely, just like I did. Leave subtle hints around the home. You know, like the wallpaper on the back of on your laptops and your desktops with this picture of the quadrant, which is what I done on the lead up to Christmas. And eventually, it works.
You forget that our wives are used to seeing all sorts of aviation areas across the house all of the time.
Yeah,
I mean, you saw my model plane collection up here earlier on, so she's used to it.
I mean, Nev, have you ever had an interest in sort of like the sort of simming and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got the basic Microsoft flight sim on my.
Oh, you have.
Yeah, so I've got the hang of that, okay. But I think Mrs. Nev is used to seeing bits of professional audio equipment suddenly turn up without any notice. I can get away with that, but suddenly a 737 throttle quadrant or some big stuff like this turning up.
It's for filming purposes.
I kid you not, the other day I was ordering some bit of tech or something that I needed, and I saw that it was available for next day delivery on Prime. I deliberately used the non-Prime because I knew that my wife would be home the next day. I waited till 2 days later and she's going to be at work, because you just get the questions. Sometimes Prime's not that good.
It's too fast. It's absolutely too
podcast, by any chance.
Yeah.
I find guys, order now, answer questions later.
Right, okay. I mean, I'm still amazed that she's allowed you to put your window up, I'll be honest. You know.
Oh yeah, it's behind me now at the moment, but it's there on the wall. But she loves it now.
Can I ask a question as a novice with this sim stuff? What's the difference between a throttle quadrant and a throttle quadrant NT? There's two options.
Well, the guy's in the chat room. He's the one.
James is in the chat. James is in the chat room, so I'm guessing he'll probably be frantically tapping on his keyboard now to answer that question for you.
Absolutely. There we go. It's one of those sort of odd thing. It's just like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, seriously though, is simming interesting to? I mean, you guys. I mean, it's all right for Carlos because he wants to fly an aeroplane and doesn't. But like for you guys, I mean, surely this is like, you know, it's like a busman's holiday. This is the last thing you want to do when you get home, surely.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, Carlos came over to my house when I lived there in the UK, and all of my flying, 100% of my flying in the UK was day or night VFR, visual flight rules. So I actually had I feel like I should take credit for Carlos's sim obsession. I had a very basic sim compared to what he's got now. But I would use it to keep instrument proficiency, not currency, because you can't legally. But I would use all of the technology in the airplane to actually keep sharp on my instrument procedures, and I would challenge myself on those things because in the Osprey we always flew VFR. So as a professional pilot, I actually enjoyed the challenge of doing instrument flying in my home.
So, so you heard it on the podcast here. Essentially, Gemma, the lovely Gemma. So the reason why you have all this stuff is Armando's fault. There you are. You heard it here on the podcast.
Thanks for that, Armando. I'll let her know later. Actually,
well, I'm 3,500 miles away, so I'm sure I'll still feel the slap come across the.
Yeah, the burning will still be there.
And after we sent you those Jaffa cakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't.
What Jaffa cakes? They're all gone.
Yeah.
Actually, just quickly, Matt, it's worth noting in the chat room, Jonathan Warner says, I think Matt secretly plays bus simulators at the weekend.
I can neither confirm or deny that accusation. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to say that we have a very popular segment returning to us. It's the first one that's appeared on our show. There's been a couple released actually during the Christmas period. So if you are wanting to absorb more of the Plain Truths, you'll find them on our YouTube channel. But this week I had a chat with Captain Al, and we are talking about the comparisons, or the differences, shall we say, between imperial and metric. Hello and welcome to another Plain Truth, and this week we're going to be talking about imperial versus metric. Joining me as always is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hello there, how's things?
Yes, good, thank you, good, thank you. Now, listen, I don't know, I guess at some point we're going to reach that level where this is a non-existent question, essentially. But certainly here in the UK, there's a lot of confusion between metres and feet. And really, I suppose the question that I'm asking here is, I presume there are still other countries who are in the same boat here, is basically what are the challenges of operating in countries that are using metres rather than feet for things like altitude?
Okay, it's a really good question. So let me ask you, are you a metres or a feet person?
Ah, right. Okay. So I'm a meters and centimeters and millimeters person, but because of the weirdness that is the UK here, obviously I do use imperial for things like recording distance rather than kilometers, for example. But yes, so
indeed.
I'm a meters, centimeters, and millimeters kind of guy.
Okay. And are you a kilos or a stones person?
Ah, right. Yes. So, well, yeah, I'm a hybrid, I guess, because I still measure in stones,
Right.
but that might be because of parents and things like that, perhaps. But,
Absolutely. But what is in the UK? What's the official?
Kilograms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we have is a set of rules that's largely ignored by people, and indeed. Still in the UK, we've been metric since, 1970, 71, I forget exactly when, but a flipping long time, best parts of 50 years, and it's still an absolute shambles. So, how does this relate to aviation?
Don't sit on the fence there, Al, will you?
So, I mean, as an absolute aside, I've just been doing a little bit of plumbing today, so looking for 1.5 inch bath waste, that will go into a 22 millimeter pipe.
Right. Yeah. Good. Lovely.
So,
Good luck with that.
so that's why I describe it as an absolute shambles. And those are the normal measurements.
Yep.
So 22 millimeter pipe, that's quite normal in the UK. And 1.5 inch bath waste is quite normal in the UK. So anyway, we're not here to talk about plumbing. We're here to talk about aviation. The good news in aviation is that there is ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, and they mandated a set of standards. So the standard measurement for aircraft speed is knots, nautical miles per hour. The standard way of measuring, let's just say, visibility is in meters and kilometers. And therefore, when we're measuring cloud height, logically, we therefore use feet. Yes, they chose feet. So we have exactly the same mix-up that we have in the UK. However, it is standardized.
Right.
So when we're talking about altitude for aircraft, the majority of the world uses the ICAO standard, which is feet. If we're flying at 36,000 feet and we've set 1,013 hectopascals on our altimeter.
Bless you.
29.92 inches of mercury if you're living in the United States. We'll come to them in a minute. Then you'll be at flight level 360, 36,000 feet on a standard altimeter setting. Unless you are flying in China, we'll tag on Mongolia in that, North Korea, but not too many aircraft fly through North Korean airspace other than North Koreans. Russia and most of the CIS states, the bits that we used to call the USSR, okay? They use meters. Brilliant. Fantastic. So we have to work around this, don't we? So if we're flying from an area where feet has been used and now we're going to fly in metric, we have to alter our altitude to fit in with the new system. The altimeter can't just be replaced overnight and ping. So a little man doesn't come out and fit a new one. So what do we do? So we have the table that says if you're flying on a metric flight level, this is the equivalent in feet, and that's what you fly. Now, here's the good thing. We introduced technology some years ago. So what we can do on our altimeters is we can display meters, and therefore we don't necessarily need a table. But all aircraft who fly sort of in these areas will have a little paper table just in case the magic button's not working. And yeah, you just have to alter your altitude, and then when you come out of the metric area, you alter it back to fit in with imperial. Is it ideal? No. Is it a pain in the backside? Yes. Is it a safety risk? Yes. What's being done about it? Good news, quite a lot. And this is hot off the press. It's either just happened or it's shortly about to happen. So either in the last couple of weeks or in the next couple of weeks, Russia is going imperial. They are going to be flying imperial flight levels. So there will no longer be metric flight levels in Russia. I would imagine that that will extend to the CIS states as well. And China has a mandate to go imperial as well in the future. I'm not quite sure of the exact dates, but ultimately, we will all be flying on feet around the world. Now, possibly, just possibly, there is a small glimmer of hope that America, having already adopted centigrade for the measurement of temperature, might start to use meters in kilometers for the visibility aspects. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but let's just hope. Because we could all do with using the same measurements around the world. It would make life a heck of a lot easier.
Expertly answered as always. Many thanks, Captain Al.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, thanks, Al. I love those segments. They're so much fun to film as well. It's another one of those where maybe one of these days I'll record like the bits that go in between. Actually, no, I won't, because we'll be taken off air, frankly. But thanks as always, Captain Al.
Yeah, I didn't give Dad a preview of this one this week, so Dad will be tuning in. He'll be listening to the show.
Indeed. So don't forget there are a couple of episodes that have been released actually on YouTube that haven't been on the podcast yet. So make sure you take yourself to our YouTube channel. Nev, our social media is where can they find us?
Yes, you can go onto our website, which is www.planetalkinguk.com. We're on Facebook, of course, at facebook.com/planetalkinguk, and on Twitter at planetalkinguk.
Indeed. Also, the WhatsApp number, don't forget, it's +44 757 2249166. It's +44 757 2249166. And if you send those pictures to us while we're doing the show, we can actually pop them up on the screen. Exciting news. Our guest for next week has officially been confirmed, Carlos.
Yeah, well, next weekend we're going to have James Brown is going to come on the show and talk
with his guitar,
with his, and he's going to chat about these awesome throttle quadrants and stuff.
So this is an absolute must for anybody who's into their simming, and I know there's an awful lot of you out there. Mm-hmm. So share the link, share the love is the best thing I can say there, because it's going to be a fantastic. I can't wait. It's going to be really. I'm going to proper geek out on this one.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm going to say quickly before we go, it's if you go on to the sales sites such as eBay, there's many more other ones, but eBay, honestly, the sim stuff now is selling absolutely frantically on there.
Is it?
Yeah, right. I put my old quadrant on and it went like that.
Wow. Anyway, enough about all this kind of thing. Now, yes. Armando, you're needing to go, obviously, because it's actually proper snowing where you are right now.
Yay!
Yeah, before I show you that, just remember, stay tuned, because we'll figure out which lucky listener is going to get this Jody Ruger Air Show hat. We'll figure out how we're going to send that out. But yes, if you guys look, actually, it is actually legitimately snowing here in North Carolina. And it doesn't happen very often. So we are going to go out and play in the snow with the
Snow angels, please. That's what we need. Snow angels.
You betcha.
So
I'll make
joke,
a peek UK Angel. Funny big eyes.
Fantastic. Cool. Okay.
So that is where we're going to bring episode 350 to a close. But before we go, we're going to just ask Matt and Andy to let us know, if you don't already know, where you can find out more about the awesome work they do.
Yeah, so let's start with the Airbus stuff. So you can find the Airbus A320 podcast on Twitter. So we're at A320 Podcast. You can find us on Facebook with the same thing. You can email us info@A320podcast. We've also got the A320 Lounge. So if you Google that, you'll find our website. And now, of course, we've got the 737 Lounge, so 737lounge.com. and the 737podcast.com. So you can find us in all of those places for all of our information.
Matt, Andy, thank you so very much for joining this week. It's been a lot of fun, as I say. And sometimes I sometimes wish we could record what we talked about when we're off air, but we won't for legal reasons, frankly.
Yes, I don't want to end up in jail or lose my job.
Ouch.
Exactly.
So that's it
Thank
then.
you for having us on. We really appreciate every time you have us on.
It's great fun.
Oh, it's good to have you guys on.
Pleasure, definitely.
Yeah. And if you don't already add it to the list, you need to add their podcast to your listening list, wherever you download them from.
Absolutely.
So that is it for episode 350. Big thanks to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Thank you to all of you guys for joining us. And don't forget as well, if you download the show as an audio podcast, big thanks to you. And if you get a few minutes spare, we always love to have a review on iTunes or wherever you download the show from. So big thanks to all the guests tonight, Matt and Andy, and a big thanks to Nev as well for joining us, and a big thanks to Armando for joining us as well. A big thanks to Matt for being the legend that he is in the studio, and also not forgetting a huge thanks to John as well, our producer, who does a heap of production work before we go live and all during the week before the show. So take care, everyone. Have a safe weekend and take care of each other. And from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Nev in his glorious studios in Buckinghamshire, from Matt in the PTUK Master Suite studios, from Armando in his Charlotte studios where it is snowing, and from Matt and Andy in their studios. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody.